Kathy from Bishopstone Yarns podcast. I'd like to welcome everyone here to this episode 17 of the podcast. And as I was saying, my name is Kathy and this is the Bishopstone Yarns podcast. This is a mainly knitting podcast with some sewing, some quilting, bit of cross stitch, and I guess some other crafts as they come along and come and go maybe. So I'm coming to you from Tasmania, which is the little island off the south of Australia, and you find me here at the moment in the corner of my studio. And today is Monday, June the 6th, and I guess for those returning viewers, it's really great to see you again. It's so lovely that you've returned to spend a bit of time with me, a bit of a chat about my craft. And also thank you for subscribing. And for new viewers, hi. It's really great to see you as well. I hope you enjoy a bit of time here, just sitting down, relaxing and sharing with my crafting journey. Now, for those people who want to find me on the internet, you can find me as Bishopstone Yarns on Facebook. You can find me as Bishopstone Yarns on Instagram. And if you're on Ravelry, you can find me as Bishopstone. I also have a group on Ravelry, the Bishopstone podcast, Bishopstone Yarns podcast on Ravelry. And I also have a blog under Bishopstone Yarns, and I haven't really been using that a lot lately. I used to use it quite a bit. I'm thinking about getting back into it so I can just put down a few more photos and maybe a little bit more information about some of the things I've been doing. I've been showing you in the podcast. And that's about it, really. That's where you can find me all around the place. So I'd just like to say thank you very much to everyone who has subscribed. It's fantastic. Thank you very much. And so if you haven't subscribed, that would be great if you could go on and click the subscribe button. If you like this video, click the like button. And of course, please leave a message or a comment. I always love to read people's comments. I like to hear what other people are doing, what they're making, also what they're thinking about what I've been making, or if they've got any suggestions about what I'm making. I always love to read those and see what everyone else is doing. So I suppose I should start off. I guess I'll just quickly start with what I'm wearing. For those people who've watched the podcast before, you've seen this before. This is my hand-knitted cardigan, or one of my hand-knitted cardigans, which in our previous house we had a number of sheep, and this is from our sheep. This wool is from our sheep, and so I hand dyed it and spun it, and then knitted it into a top-down cardigan. So there isn't really a pattern for it. It just kind of made it up a bit as I went. So yeah. And then I have a little sheepy badge here. Oops, little sheepy badge here as well, just to keep it together, because even though it's got a button band, I haven't put any buttons on it. I've just used a little brooch to keep it together. And yeah. And as we're heading into, well, we are in winter. We've just started winter here in Tasmania. It's a really great time to be wearing hand-spun, hand-knitted wool jumpers, and nothing like a bit of wool to keep us nice and warm. Yeah. So I will start with a couple of knitted things that I've done. I haven't actually done, there isn't a lot in terms of knitting. There is some cross-stitch and some sewing and quilting that I will be talking about or showing. So the first thing I'll show you is I have finished the socks for my husband. Now you have to forgive me. I've only got one set of sock blockers, and those sock blockers, of course, are small to fit my feet. My husband's feet, of course, are a lot bigger than my tiny little feet, but I thought this might be the best way to try and show them off. So this was a ball of sock yarn, from a ball of sock yarn, which I don't know, I couldn't find the label. I might have a look around. I might still be able to find the label. I'm not quite sure which brand of sock ball this was. This was some that had come from my mum's stash. And then I had just knitted these toe up. And if you want to have a look in a couple of the previous episodes, I had got up to, I think, about here when I had to, my husband said no, they were too big, so we had to, I ripped them back and then started re-knitting. And so I kind of just did a little video showing me kind of ripping back the knitting and how I go about that. So it's not really a tutorial, it was just a bit of a video showing you what I was doing. So here they are, the two brown socks, and I must say, you know, as we all know, it's like I think every episode I'd say this, brown is not my colour. But he's really happy with a pair of brown socks. I mean, he wasn't too fussed. He didn't really care what colour the socks were going to be. And so it was a really good way to use up some of this brown sock wool that came from my mum. Now, so these came from a ball, which I think the ball hadn't been started. It's hard to tell because it, you know, came out of my mum's stash, but I don't think that any had been used. But this is what I have left over. So, I mean, I guess I could get a pair of baby socks out of that, maybe even a toddler pair of socks out of it. But that was pretty good going, considering that these socks are a lot bigger than I would knit for myself. And yeah, but there's still enough yarn here that I could use up for something, or I could just keep all these little bits, because I do have quite a few bits and pieces of sock yarn left over from projects, which I could then use to make a blanket, which is on my list of things to make for this year. So I could keep this and use it. I'd have to have a look and see how much I have sock yarn, or whether or not I just kind of start kind of knitting up a bit of a blanket and then see how far we get. But that's another option for that. But I was happy that I was left with a little bit of yarn. So for these, as I was saying, I did toe up socks, and I knitted them 2 at a time. When I got to the heel, because I usually knit toe up socks for myself, and I don't usually do a heel kind of flap on my socks. I usually just do kind of a simple heel. And but before my husband, because these were such big socks, I thought I needed to put a heel flap in, and because I hadn't knitted one for a very long time going toe up, I thought I had better look up in one of my books and get a pattern. So I used, and I showed this last time, I used this book, and it was it was called the Short Row Heel and Flap. Don't know whether or not I'll be able to show you there. So that's what I used for the heel. If I can show you again, there we go. So that's the book, and I explained in the previous previous episodes how this book has a little flip thing, so you can choose the style of heel you want. Yep, where are we? And flip over to the type of heel you want, to the pattern you want in the leg, and also for the type of cuff you want. So you can mix and match all the different elements of a sock to put together to design your own sock in a way, which I kind of thought was a really good idea when I first bought it. I did use it a bit to make try out a few different things and get the concept of designing your own sock. But it came in very handy this time for doing my husband's socks, considering it was such a long time since I had done a toe-up heel flap. It worked out quite well. I don't know if I can if you can see here or not. So we've got the ribbed section here, and then just the knitted heel bit below. So I think I was quite happy with how the heel turned out. Of course, I used a template, which I can see here, with just a little bit of instruction. That's what I was using to make the socks from. And so I know that I had cast on, so I started with is it the figure 8 cast on, where you take your 2 needles and then you wrap like a figure 8 around your 2 needles. And so each needle, I started off with 12 stitches on each needle, and then you start kind of knitting in the round. So you've already got a join. You don't have to join the end of your toe. By the time you're knitting, you've already started kind of almost knitting in the round. So I started with 12 stitches at the toe on each stitch, so that was 24 stitches all up, 12 on each stitch, and going back, round and round and round, until I think I got up to 37 stitches on each needle for the width of his. Oh, where are we? Can I get this to show? Yes, yeah, so for the width. And then, of course, this is where this marker here shows where his ankle bone was. So I knew round about where to start thinking about for the heel. And yeah, that's how I've usually done it in the past, especially when I'm knitting for other people. I don't need to do it for myself because, of course, I've got my foot in front of me. I can keep referring to my own foot, but especially for the kids and things like that, I usually just try and take a template and use that. And then I can just remember, because I've already got the template there, I've got the number of stitches. As long as I'm using a 4-ply sock yarn, I know that would, generally speaking, work out to be the same size and fit the person that I've got a template for. So after finishing my husband's socks, I came across a plastic bag that came from my mum's house, which was a pair of socks which she had started, and I remember her knitting these socks as well. As she got sicker and sicker, she was knitting these socks. But when my mum first got sick, we were still able to go to craft group together, and she took these socks with her and had been knitting them. And then there got a point when she wasn't well enough to continue her knitting at all. So then I came across this plastic bag which actually had these socks in it, which she'd been knitting, and I think I'd seen them before, and I just it was too soon. It was too soon for me to pick it up and start working on it, because of course it was the last thing she was knitting before she died. So anyway, I got to the point where I thought, well, it's time to pick these up. So this is the yarn that's being used, and I'll just get this is, oh, is it going to focus for you? anyway, this is Poem Socks, and the colorway is Pumpkin Patch. So you can't really go by the picture that's on the top up here. That's not this colorway. And so I'd never actually seen this wool before. It is, so you've got 100 grams and there's 420 meters in a ball, which is 459 yards for those people who don't use, oops, no, I can, okay, I'm not going to be able to get it to focus, I don't think. I was just looking to see what it's made up of. So these are made in Turkey, and oh yeah, here we go. 75% superwash wool and 25% nylon. And so this is the colorway that they have knitted up into. And Pumpkin Patch is a very apt name. So when I got these, my mum had knitted down, I guess about here on them. So I've only really just done the heel and the foot. I did have to rip back quite a bit actually, of the knitting, especially when she had first started the heel flap. So I had to kind of unknit all of that. I got to a point where I could tell that she was still well enough to be knitting without making mistakes. I had thought about leaving some of the mistakes in there simply because she had knitted them, and then I thought, well, the problem with that was I wasn't quite, I mean, I didn't know what pattern she was using to begin with. This is a 1x1 rib, if you can see. The whole sock is a 1x1 rib, and there were about 60 stitches on the cast on. So this was a top down she was knitting, and she was knitting them on 4 DPNs. And so I had to knit it, I had to kind of rip out until I got to a point where I knew what was happening with the pattern, and then could just go on. Now I knew that my mum, the type of heel my mum usually did, so I just went ahead and did just a normal slip one, knit one heel flap, and then picked up here. I actually used the, I think it's the vanilla sock 3-stitch, where you kind of like on the heel flap you knit the first 3 stitches, so it's a lot easier to pick up. Or is it my favorite? I think it's my favorite vanilla sock pattern. I think that's what it's called. And so I think so I used that kind of technique, and then had 60 stitches for the main part of the foot, and then have just got to the end here. So I'm about ready to cast off, or I use Kitchener stitch here, and I thought I might just leave that, because if I get a little bit of extra time later on, I might try and do a video and show you the Kitchener stitch, just a little video of me doing the Kitchener stitch. So not a tutorial, but just me doing it. So I'm really happy. My mum always knitted her socks on DPNs. For those people who may not be aware, DPN is double pointed needle, and these are the needles that she was using. Can I get them to, there we go. Well, I can't really get it to, maybe if I pop it on the sock, there we go, that might help a little bit. Anyway, so these are Crystal Palace bamboo needles, and they're 2 millimeters or size 0, which I think that's the American sizing, and they're 6 inches. So as I was saying, my mum always used DPNs, old school, and that's how she knitted all her socks. She never used a circular needle, she never did magic loop, and she didn't do toe up. So she did top down DPNs all the way. And so that's how I have knitted this pair of socks. So very big contrast from, where are we? From my husband's socks to my socks. And but these do look tiny, but they because they're ribbed, they do stretch quite a bit. So you can see, yeah. So, but the only problem with knitting this way, not problem, but the only thing about knitting this way is, of course, I've got one sock. Now I have to start the second sock. Now, and because this sock wool is in a colourway, I've been looking at this as well, because you start off here with the green, blue, orange, brown, and then it kind of tends to reverse it on itself back to the orange and the blue, and I guess the next colour would be the green. So I'm just presuming that if I cast off here and start with this green, we will be running with the same pattern. I'm hoping that this green here, where are we? That this green here at the end is going to just go straight onto this green. But I can't guarantee that, because I haven't used this before, and I don't know if that's the way it goes, or if it's going to run with a different kind of line. Either way, it doesn't worry me. I'm not a person who's particularly fussed about having my socks exactly. Sometimes when I'm doing, say if I'm using a sock yarn like this, but which has got a lot more colour contrast in it, then I will, once I've cast off, I will actually go through the yarn till I get to the next start of exactly the same colour repeat that I've started or ended with, and continue on. So I do have matching socks. But for this one, I'll just continue on. And so hopefully next time, on the next knitting podcast, you'll be able to see whether or not I have two matching or slightly matching or not matching at all socks. But like I was saying, it doesn't really worry me. I'm quite happy with however it comes out. So that's my knitting so far. And the only other knitting project I've got going at the moment is I am in the process of starting to make the yarn for my Birkin by Caitlin Hunter. So I have been mixing up a blend of wool and alpaca and spinning that up. I've got about one bobbin finished, so I haven't even applied that yet to have a look at the yarn, and hopefully it will be the right, it'll work, the yarn will work for the pattern. So he's having my fingers crossed. But so it's a work in progress. It is a knitting work in progress. So, but I haven't actually started knitting because I haven't done all the yarn yet. So, but it is knitting related. So, yes. So the other thing I have been doing is, oh, I should have got this out beforehand. Sorry, I'm just going to open up this packet and get this out. I have been working on my cross stitch, which I have come back to cross stitching with a little bit of gusto. So I am doing the Plum Street sampler, the Kringle and Woodlard, sorry. So I am so close to finishing here. So I've used the DMCs. I wouldn't get very far with the DPNs. So I've used the called for colours in the DMCs, except for the sheep, which I have changed the colours. And if you want to know what colours I use for that, you can go back into the previous knitting episode where I talked about the colours for that. And if I get around to doing my blog post, I'll pop it up in there as well. but he's looking pretty good. I've just got this little part of the tree and a couple of kind of stems to do, and a couple more, not that you can really see. There are where are they? There are some white kind of snowflakes around, but very hard to see the white. I had, you can probably see one here near the, where are we? Near the tail. I had actually thought about changing the colour of those, but I thought I'll leave it. I guess if I was going to do something like that again, I was actually even thinking a white with a slightly slight sparkle in it would be really nice, because then when I caught the light it would be like the snowflakes were kind of sparkling. But yeah, no, I'm very happy with how this is going, and I'm so happy that it's nearly finished, even though it has taken a lot longer than I thought it was going to. I have been enjoying it a lot. But then I've also been thinking about which is the next project I'm going to do. So I'm not sure whether I'm going to, the next one, whether I will start with, can I get this without? There we go. Whether I will start with this little heart or start with sweet pea. I do want to do sweet pea, but I'm also quite tempted in a way just to start. I've already I've got it kind of there with the colors I'm going to use, and I've already got the pink material for it, so I'm kind of thinking it would be really nice to do a nice quick little piece and start that and finish that soon, but we'll see. I have to make sure I finished Santa soon, and then I'll have to look for a nice little frame for him. Actually, I was out the other day in one of our big craft stores, and I was actually looking to see what they had in the way of frames. There wasn't a huge range, so I think I might have to go around to some of the op shops and places like that to have a look and see if I can find a frame to put Santa in, so that he can go up as part of the display for Christmas. Then the other thing I have been doing is our quilt group is doing a sew along. We're making a quilt together, and first of all, when I go along to my quilting group, instead of taking my sewing machine and all my material and everything with me, I take along something I can just do a little bit of hand sewing. Some of the other ladies just take their material and cut out their material for their blocks, but I find I need to concentrate a little bit more than that. I have to do it at home where it's fairly quiet, and I can check and double check, and then maybe even triple check before I cut my pieces out. And it takes me a long time as well to choose which colours I'm going to put together. So I found it easier to take with me along to the quilting group just some hand sewing, just something to make, and then come home and then do the cutting and making of the blocks at home. So what I have been working on at the moment is this one, which is the Hexi zipped purse by Hugs and Kisses, who is a Tasmanian-based designer, and I've done one for big quilts, double bed quilts before, and I absolutely love her designs and her fabrics and everything. So this is where I have come up to with the little hexis. If you can see, I've got all the little hexagons, and I've got the little iron-on hexagon pieces in there. And this is where I'm up to so far. This is the piece I'm working on at the moment. I have finished the back of the purse. Put it over this way. Still not going to help, is it? There we go. So there's a bit of pink ric-rac, put up a bit closer, and a couple of hearts on there. And so I'm really happy with that. And almost, I mean, I haven't got too much further to go. I'm kind of pretty close in terms of the size of the hexagons to match the back. It's got a few more to put in, and I think a couple of little half hexis I might need to pop in. And when I was out the other day, I did get some iron-on fusible batting, which I'll iron onto that to give it a little bit of, make it a little bit stronger and stiffer before I then start sewing it all up. Yes, so then I have been still working away on my farmer's wife sampler quilt. So it's the 1920s farmer's wife sampler's quilt. And these are the next lot, and I am aware that actually I should start just do a video by itself, just going through showing you all the blocks up to so far. I think I've done 30 blocks now. I haven't told you the names of them or anything in any of the previous podcasts, so maybe I should do one episode. If people would like me to do that, I'll do that, and do an episode just on the quilting blocks and tell you their names. Yes, so I'll just quickly show you the ones, hopefully. So we've got this one, and I was really happy that this one, I think it's called Spool, was in there, because I was hoping to make, I've noticed that a lot of other sewers and that have made like little quilts out of this design, and I thought actually as a cover for my sewing machine this would look really nice if I had a number of these patterns all together, and it was an easy, enjoyable block to make. And got this one, and this one. Just trying to think, there's one here. I quite liked this one, and I'm pretty sure it's this one here. This one, I shouldn't really say I'm not happy with it, but I'm not happy with it. And at this point in time, I'm not going to go back and redo it, but I'm not happy with how my points in the middle there are not meeting evenly, and they're not, yeah, I'm really not happy at all with that one. But it all comes down to, I think, what I am okay with in the end. Once I've done the rest, I think when I finish all the blocks and then I put them together and I decide how I'm going to have them, if some of these blocks stand out and I kind of say to myself, oh, I can't have it in there because it's going to annoy me, I'll go back and remake them. But at this point in time, I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it as it is, and maybe it's not going to worry me, and therefore I can just look at it as a learning curve and an experience. But then if it's going to really annoy me in a quilt, I will take it out and redo it. So I'll wait to the end. Wait to the end and decide. I love the colours, and I don't think I have any more of like some of this kind of lighter colour and things like that. So it'd be a shame if I had to redo it because I'd have to change the colours totally. Anyway, we'll decide. I'll decide towards the end. The other thing I have done is I have bought some material, and not quilting material, or so I'm planning to make a garment, a very, very simple apron. And I am not a sewer at all. And I mean, I had done some sewing when I was younger and used some patterns and things like that, but this is the pattern that I am planning to make. So it's a Marvin called the Maria apron, and so it's like a crossover apron, if you can see, like with pockets. So it's got a crossover at the back, and I was actually hoping to have this not so much as an apron as such, but just something I can wear over my clothes. So while I'm just either knitting, spinning, just generally just kind of wear over the top of what I've got on. So it's not something that's necessarily to stop myself from getting really dirty in terms of cooking or stuff, or I'm not going to wear it when I was doing any painting or anything like that. It's just a light cover and just something. I mean, I quite like the idea of, I like those kind of like tops you can put on, or tunics that you put on over the top, like even when you have a pair of jeans on and wearing things along kind of top over the top of the clothes you've got on, if that makes any sense. And as I was saying, I'm not a sewer, and so luckily my sister-in-law, who is an absolutely fantastic sewer and makes the most amazing clothes, has agreed to help me out, which is going to be great. Now, she lives in New Zealand, so this is going to be done via Zoom. Hopefully she won't find it too frustrating with such a beginner sewer as me, but I think I can do it. I mean, I have made dresses and things like that before, and I know that if I just take it slowly, one step at a time, it will be good. And at the same time, my daughter is going to make one as well. So, and my daughter is 25, so she is an adult, not a young girl, a young child. So I was out the other day at one of our local, kind of big local craft shops called Spotlight, which just have a whole range of kind of craft things, and I had a look to see what they had. And so my daughter and I both knew that we wanted some linen. So I had a look at the linen, and I just made a guess of kind of like what kind of colour she might like, but she was quite happy with this one, so I've chosen a blue linen for her. So it's got that very Japanesey indigo kind of look and feel about it. My daughter's very petite, so I think that would look lovely on her, as long as we can find a size that's small enough that fits her. But I think this this kind of Japanesey kind of styly look will look really nice on her. And then, of course, I spent a bit of time trying to decide what I was going to go with, whether I was going to go with a plain colour, or there were some lovely florally small kind of like motifs probably about this big, about that kind of size. But in the end, I decided, no, I'll go for a plain. Originally, I was going to go for a steely kind of grey colour, but there wasn't anything there that really kind of grabbed me, that kind of made me feel, oh yeah, that's the real kind of grey that I wanted. So I thought, no, I'll go for something a bit more colourful. So I chose this one here, which is I'm not even quite sure what colour you would really call it. It is a kind of a pinky, it's more of a rosy kind of a colour. It's a very warm colour. And actually, when I got it out of the bag the other night, it was inside and it was at night time, and so the lights were on, and it actually looked a little bit brown, and I thought, oh no, don't tell me I've chosen something brown. But it's not brown at all. It does have a very pinky kind of undertone to it, which is really lovely, which is exactly what I wanted. So I'm really looking forward to making this, and and I am really, really happy that my sister-in-law Colette is able to help me. So she will know exactly what we need to do, and hopefully we'll be good students for her and she won't find it too frustrating. So I'll let you know how we go with that. But yes, but like I said to my daughter, I'm really looking forward to making this apron, but I'm also looking forward not to getting ahead of myself and thinking, oh, once I've made an apron, I could make a top, and then I could make a tunic. And then I'm thinking, no, that's just running ahead with myself, and I don't need to buy more material to make clothes. I've still got my quilt and everything else to do. So I've got enough material there for my quilt and all that kind of stuff. It's tempting though, isn't it? It's tempting when you go to make something new that you just want to learn something new and run with it and get all excited about what you're making and make more things and more. But then also I just need to remind myself, well, you know, I have made things in the past and it's been enjoyable, but I really want to concentrate with what I have here at the moment. And I've still got my little box here of cross stitch, and I'm thinking if I can keep my cross stitch to only just a few pieces at a time, then that's fine. And yeah, so that's really what I've been up to in the last 2 weeks in terms of my knitting and sewing, and a little bit of my spinning as well. I hope that everyone else has had a really nice week, that you've had a chance to enjoy some crafting, to enjoy some making, and yeah, and be able to find some time to sit back and relax. I know that as it gets colder down here, now that winter has arrived, we've had some quite cold weather and very grey skies and rain and wind and snow, well, not snow where we are, but snow up on the mountains. I'm kind of looking forward to that kind of cozier inside time, which makes it easier to spend time doing your crafting and sitting back and relaxing. Anyway, I'd like to thank you all for watching. Thank you very much for joining me on my little chat here. And if you liked the video, give it the thumbs up. Press the thumbs up and the like button. That would be fantastic. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And of course, as always, if you've got a comment, leave a comment. Tell me what you think. If you think about anything that I'm making or what I'm doing or got any suggestions, that would be fantastic. I would love to hear from you. There's so much I still need to learn. And I love it how that this community is really open and happy to share information and ideas. I just think that's really lovely that we can share and help each other with our crafting journeys, and yeah, and then it just makes everyone's experience so nice and enjoyable as well. So I will say bye. Bye. Hi, I've returned with my sock that is almost finished. I've got up to the toe here. The last lot of the needles stitches are left on the needles, and it's time for me to Kitchener stitch the end together. I thought I'd just do a little video. I know the light's not very good here and it's not very easy to see what I'm doing. There isn't much sunshine outside, and it's a little bit grey in here, but I thought I'll go ahead anyway. Now, I have this little piece of paper here, which I found in with the socks. So my mum had printed off this little sample of what to do for Kitchener stitch, and she's also circled all the main pieces, the main words. So purl front on, knit back on, knit front off, purl front on, purl back off, knit back on. So she has made it very, very easy for me. I'm just going to leave that there, and I'll follow that as I do this. I know a lot of people say that when they kitchen a stitch, they remember the little, you know, which one's which and which one to do next. I have as yet have not been able to remind myself of which stitch to do when. So I always find it really helpful to have this little bit of paper in front of me. And I know my mum had quite a few of these printed off, and she had them quite a few all over the place. So it's quite helpful. So I have got at the moment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches on each needle. I've got my yarn here attached to the back needle, and I've just got quite a large darning needle threaded with the leftover yarn. So the first step is to purl the front stitch. So you take the first stitch and you put the needle in as if you were going to do a purl stitch. Then you leave that stitch on, and then you knit the first stitch on the back. So you take your needle and you put it into the first stitch on the back needle as if you're going to do a knit stitch. You pull that through and leave that on. Now those two are like your foundation stitches, and then you continue with the next kind of stitches. So then you knit, put the needle through the front stitch as if you're going to knit that stitch, you pull that through, and then you slip it off. Then you put your needle onto the second stitch, or the next stitch on the front, as if you're going to purl. Pull that through and you leave that one on. Then you go to the first stitch on the back needle, and you insert the needle as if you're going to purl, and you pull that tight, and you take that first stitch off. Then you go to the next first stitch on the back needle and you knit, put your needle through as if you're going to knit, and you leave that stitch on. So there you've done one pass of the repeat of what you're doing for kitchen a stitch. So then you start again with the first stitch at the front, you put the needle in as if you're going to knit that stitch, and then you slip it off. Then you take the next first stitch at the front and you slip your needle in as if to purl, and you leave it on. Then you go to the next first stitch on the back needle here. You take your needle as if to purl that stitch, and you slip that first stitch off. And then between each one I just give a little pull just to tighten it up to make sure it's nice and tight. Then I take the next stitch on the back needle, if you can see here, as if to knit. So I knit through that one and leave it on. And if you can kind of, oh, you can't really see, it's a little bit difficult to see with the dark wool, but it's just leaving it looking like you've just done a little knit row. So the first one is you take the first stitch on the front and you knit the front stitch and slip it off. Then you take your needle as if you're going to purl the next stitch on the front needle and you leave it on. Then you go to the back needle and you purl that one and slip that one off. Then you take the next stitch on the back needle, whoops, sorry, and then you pull that through and leave it on. Then go back to the front where you knit through the front stitch and slip off. Then you purl the next stitch and leave it on. Then you go to the back stitch as if to purl, and pull that through, slip that one off. Then I just tighten my stitches a little bit there, and then I put my needle through on the back as if to knit, pull that through and leave it on. Then I go back to the front needle and the front stitch as if to knit, and I slip that one off. And the next one, on the front needle, I purl and leave it on. Then I go back to the back needle and I purl the first stitch on the back needle and slip that off. Oop, there we go. And then I take my needle and I knit the next stitch and leave that one on. Now I've only got one stitch left at the front and two at the back, so I will be knitting my front stitch and slipping off, and then I will purl my back stitch, slip that one off, then knit the last stitch, which is from the back needle, and that's all my stitches.